have about 700 and maybe 1,745 students, and we have about 321 staff members, I believe. And about half of them
live in these 3 towns.
Yes.
So of the employees.
Yes, that's accurate.
That's a good piece of information as well.
Yes.
Is anybody capturing these type of meeting notes besides the fact? Oh, you're awesome.
Melanie Chassie is our minute taker extraordinaire.
And I thought you were just working on something else. And the reason will those meeting minutes be published?
Yeah.
Okay.
We post, what we try to do again is, our goal is to be really transparent.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a video so they can see the exact
Sure.
conversation if they want to watch it. We post the minutes and we'll post all the documents. So they can, if we're referencing a document, the people from home can pull the document up and see what we're actually discussing for, we're talking, when Holly's talking about her by the numbers and they want to pull up her document and see it, firsthand or printed out, they have that ability to do so.
Fantastic.
And we do, when we send our
Sorry, I didn't know.
When we send we send a mailing out to every household about our budget. I'm sure you have seen them and read them in their entirety. We do that every year, and then we have 2 other mailings that go in adult ed flyers. But we also post in those mailings when our budget meetings are, and that they're open to the public, and also that we post all information on our website and we put the link. So we keep trying to get the word out, but again, getting people to read what you send out and also to attend meetings is a challenge.
Tina, we've had numbers of kids in each school. So it's easy enough to figure out our elementary school students, but do we know, can we get the numbers of each town's kids in the middle school and high school?
Certainly, yeah.
Just because it comes back all the time, if we're paying X percentage of the budget, well, big deal, you've got percentage of the kids too.
Yes, so I've heard this from Poland selectmen particularly, that they pay 66% of the district budget. That's absolutely true. They have about 48% of the student body. They pay more of the budget because it's based on assessment, and they have a lot of expensive property, and they have Poland Springs. So the cost per household, the lowest taxes are in Poland. It's, last year I believe it was $866 per $100,000 house, and it was about $1,000 for Minot and Mechanic Falls. So they have the lowest taxes per the same kind of home, but they, as a unit, they do pay more of the budget because of their local assessments, which includes, like I said, expensive property.
Who sets that calculation at formula? That's state?
The state, what the state does is they do the assessment,
right,
and then the cost goes through a formula. I don't know if Stacy wants to explain it further.
Yes, the additional local that we talked about when we were talking about the revenue budget at the beginning, that's based on the cost sharing formula, which was established at the time of consolidation. It was in the plan, and it's 90% valuation and 10% enrollment.
At one time, when they first built the high school, Stacy was involved in too. Minot Mechanic Falls paid state average.
Yes.
Before, and then when we became an RSU, we worked hard on changing that form to what it is now. And it was actually Minot Mechanic Falls picked up quite a bit more, so it cost them more than it did.
And when you look at the population of the 3 towns, it's interesting because, I think Poland has around 6,000 residents, and Minot and Mechanic Falls are between the 2,500 and around the 3,000 range. So their population is about 50, 25, 25, as well as our student population is very close to that. So pretty equal distribution in when you consider those two angles. Holly.
We jump to my next slide with the by the numbers. So district-wide, for students with IEPs, we have 320 students. So from about 50, that's 15 higher than last year, which is a 5% increase, kind of high. That ranges between 18 and 19% of our total student population are identified with special education needs. That's pretty consistent for the district year to year. It usually hovers right around 18%. Out-of-district students, which are really our costliest students, so it's important we're kind of aware of them. We currently have 17 out-of-district students. 2 of them are what is known as a state agency client, which means the state is picking up the entire bill for any costs they incur in their out-of-district placement. So they're on our account, but they're not coming out of our budget money. We have 13 special education teachers in our K-8 buildings and 8 special education teachers at the high school. We have 3 speech therapists who serve the district, 1 OT who serves the district. We have our 2.5 social workers, and we contract with that other half-time social worker because we were not able to fill that this year. We have a behavior specialist that serves the entire district. We have 1 psychological examiner who does all our testing in the district for students. We contract for a physical therapist, and we have a team leader, an academic evaluator, it should say at Whittier End PRHS. She actually serves the 7 through 12 population there.
Were you ready to go on?
No, just, yeah. Ed techs, we have 44 special education ed techs in the K through 8, 13 in the high school, 4 unfilled slots. That does not include the 2 that resigned this week. So really I'm up to 6 unfilled slots, and have not had a lot of interest coming our way during the middle of the school year for positions. We have yet to be able to fill all our ed tech slots in the district, which is very challenging.
What is the question is like, why is it based on just because it's a very stressful job that they're having, or burning people out, or is it a combination?
That's a part of it. Pay is low. It's an hourly job. It's a low-paying job, and they only get 30 to 32 hours a week. So financially, it's difficult for a lot of people.
It's a school year job.
And it's a school year job, right? Yes. So they are eligible for benefits, which is a great opportunity when you work 30 to 32 hours a week to have full benefits available to you. But pay makes it difficult to attract ed techs into a challenging job.
What's the starting or usual pay for?
I think the starting salary is around $11 an hour. It's pretty much most people between 11 and 14 an hour.
And then what's required education to get to that position?
60 college credits for an ed tech 2.
Yes, like 2 years of college
Yes.
for an ed tech 2, and if we hire an ed tech 3, they require 3 years of college.
And it doesn't even necessarily have to be in education. It could be in any field, would qualify them under the state to be an ed tech.
For a $22,000 a year job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The real benefit, the real,
Not even that much.
yeah, what you
Not 22,000.
what you tend to
Well,
find.
yeah, 32 hours, right.
Yeah.
Here, I'm based on 40,
Yeah.
sorry.
What you tend to find with the ed tech positions is they're teacher assistants, so they're always working under a supervision of a teacher. They are often people who want a school year schedule. They may have younger or children at home. They want to be on school, at school, or at work when their children are at school, and they want to be home when their children are home. The other benefit is our benefits. So they get full benefits at 30 hours a week. So a lot of times people who have spouses who are on self-employed or their family needs benefits, they can get a full family benefit package. Sometimes their benefits are worth more than their actual pay. So they may be on a family plan that costs $21,000. And they may be taking $20,000 home for their pay. So for many people, it's a great job. I mean, where can you work 30 hours a week, have your vacations and your summers off, and have full benefits? So although it's not when we say a high-paying per hour job, the benefit package makes it a really good deal for many people. But again, they're not paid in
That
the
would
summer.
make more sense, though, if you were filling all the positions. So something's broken the system.
Well,
Right.
one of the things that happened is last contract, we did bring them up. That was one of the lines that was brought up the most in an attempt to try to gain us background that we lost over the last several years. But we're still in the catch-up process because everyone around us is still paying more hourly than we are. So that's the difficulty. We're competing with the local areas surrounding us with those same positions.
And when unemployment is at 3%, again, you're competing not only with education jobs, which are extremely can be extremely stressful. You're dealing with our most challenged students. They have either severe behavioral or educational handicap needs. That's who our ed techs are working with. So you have to have a lot of skill, a lot of knowledge. You have to be able to survive a summer without a paycheck, and just all of those things. And as Jack said, we were a few dollars an hour lower than the surrounding region, so we increased our ed tech pay. I don't know if it was last year or this year, 75 cents with an hour, with additional increases over the course of this contract to try to get, again, we're trying to get everybody up to close to regional averages so we can compete and keep people. But it's been really difficult for keeping special ed techs.
Are there any
We had a salary freeze for a number of years as well, too.
Yeah, we had.
That's behind.
Right, that's 17, when we were at 17 or $18 million budgets, we had a year where there was a salary freeze. We had a year where they had furlough days and lost their raises through not working days. They had a year where I believe it was a 1%. So there were multiple years in a row where raises were minimal and benefits costs went up and all of those other things. So they were taking home less over the course of a 3 or 4 year period than they might have been prior to that economic downturn.
But those were the years that other people were also probably in the
yes.
private sector. I know we had salary freezes, and
Exactly.
actually money was taken away from us. So that was
Yes.
probably nobody
Similar. Right.
likes that, but it was a practice that was
Yes.
around in the industry as well.
And it didn't necessarily happen in all of the school departments, so that's one of the other pieces is, we're one of the only consolidated district that saved a lot of money. And I don't know if you remember, but last year they did an article about consolidation, the fact that when people consolidated, they kept the same costs and just expanded programs. And when they were doing that, they called us to do just a blurb about it. Found out we had actually saved, $3 or $4 million in consolidation, and they ended up writing a nice article, a pretty big article about RSU 16 and the approach that the district took to save money for taxpayers through the consolidation process. So we certainly were in a situation where we weren't giving raises or moving forward during that time period. We made a lot of cuts and a lot of losses in programs.
Has there been any communication with some of the local colleges that maybe where people are going to school in these areas, so that try to get maybe as a co-op program where they can get some educational credits by real work life experience?
Yeah, we have been working with them saying, we need these graduates. Do you have anyone coming out in January? We've talked about them they've offered some more programs. We couldn't find a GT qualified person, and they increased their offerings in the GATE program. They talk to their undergrads. We call constantly.
Yes, we do. We are in contact with them. Yeah.
And we're not alone.
Yes.
I want you to think RSU 16 too is the only
Right.
one struggling to find ed techs. Everybody across the
Everybody
state
is.
is struggling.
Yes.
If you hear ed techs and substitutes,
Yeah.
because again, there's not the unemployment rates now, so you don't have people at home willing to be substitutes because they've got jobs.
And it really is the whole, what is minimum wage at, because the ed tech is the lowest paid wage in the district. So percentage-wise, the last couple of times we've done contracts, percentage-wise, they've had the biggest increases. But when you're, 4 years ago, starting out with, if you were a first-year ed tech, you were making 10-something an hour. When you throw 4 or 5% on that, that's not much.
Yeah, I think their total raise was about 5% the
Yeah.
first year when
Yeah.
we did the 75% raise.
So, we're trying to catch up, but you can't throw it all out there once because it won't pass the budget process. So.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's a delicate balance
Yes.
here. Taxes going up, or
Right.
positions that are not being filled, and services that are not being rendered
Right.
to the people that you're trying to support. So it's that, where do you find that balance?
Yes, absolutely.
And I guess if we're talking about ed techs, one of the things that we are really lucky about is we do have some very skilled ed techs that have been with us for a long time and have continued to stay with us because it is a good place to work. But they are working with significant needs, children with significant needs, and as those needs have expanded, our need for ed techs has expanded. But we are really lucky in that we do have some very skilled ed techs.
Yeah. Absolutely do. Yep.
Okay?
Okay, next slide. So my budget last year was very much broken down into K-8, 9-12, and central office administration. This year it's been broken down even more so to more lines by school and by programs. So now we're looking at what are the costs for a self-contained classroom at Minot, which means all the children in the program have special needs. What is the cost for the resource program at Minot? And then it goes on and on to each school. To simplify things, I went back to the bottom line for what are the costs for K-8, 9-12, and administration. Next year, we will probably look at this a little bit differently because of how we're going to budget next year.
You want to explain the difference between self-contained and resource, because I think that might help people understand.
So self-contained is a program that every student in the classroom is identified as a student with a special education need. So they aren't necessarily spending their entire day with their typically developing peers, the way they would in a mainstream program. And resource is support for those students that are in the mainstream program that might need additional support in reading, writing, math, whether they get pulled out for some support or a teacher goes in to provide extra support.
So self-contained is the more severely delayed. They're usually self-contained in a special program that meets their specific needs. So if they have autism and they're at the life skills program at Minot, they would stay there all day or for the majority of the day.
Yeah. So the K-8 costs went up about 4.3%. We took up the technology costs. We didn't talk a whole lot about that with the other budgets, but I think everybody's technology costs went to Linda's budget. Right, Linda?
They already were. Yeah, they were already. Most of the technology costs were already in Linda's budget.
Okay, all right.
Okay. We'll talk later.
Yeah. We have a district-wide behavior specialist who was currently under the K-8 category. We moved her to central office administration, so her salary and benefits are pulled out of this line. We added $30,000 to cover services for out-of-district students without main care. I'm going to try to explain this. When we send a student out of district to another school, like Margaret Murphy Center, like the Collaborative School, like Spurwink, we have to pay the tuition costs for that student. Then there are additional costs for the student if they need speech services, if they need social work services, psychological services, if they need ed tech support in that placement. That's all separate from the tuition line. If they are a student that has main care and they qualify for main care, we pay 1/3 of those costs. And you're going to see that in the administration line. That's called the seed money for main care. If they do not have main care, we're picking up the full costs for those related services. So our out-of-district lines are actually, they're quite high because of all these costs. If we had not been properly budgeting in the past for these non-main care students, we have more non-main care students out of district this year than we have in previous years, so our costs are higher. So we needed to make sure we were putting in the money to cover those services for the K-8 students.
Is that cost shared amongst all the towns, or is it based on where the student resides and that town has to pick up the tab?
Goes through the funding formula. So it's just like cost for any other child.
Okay.
So the cost for education goes through the funding formula, and each town pays their share per the funding formula.
And it's per individualized student. We pay for each student we send out of district, whatever their needs are and whatever's written on their plan that the team determines they need.
Is this kind of a discussion of having another site? Well, this is K-8, having another classroom or portable over at the school year,
right?
To then bring some of them back. I mean, because if you're paying, per student 40,000 to 80,000,
yes,
you only need a few to make up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Are those numbers going to be shown somewhere where they can sort of be clear to people that this money that's going out can be reshifted to?
It will be. Yes. It's in our, again, when in our budget we have a line for out-of-district placement. It's got $450,000 in it right now. And so that's why we're saying now, if we get these other positions, those lines will be immediately reduced. There will be when we present it to the budget committee, we will come back and say, we have taken this much out, but it's really only shifting to another line. Right. It's still, you know what I mean, we're going to be taking 80,000 out of district placement, 50 for the teacher, 30 for the social worker. So it doesn't show a difference in the bottom line. It It's just been moved to a new location.
Okay.
So that's how that will work. But we talk about it because, again, the transparent piece of this is we're asking for another position, but it's not going to necessarily cost more money. Some of the other things we're asking for, they're actually going to cost more money. So we try to put them all on the table, like the buses, not necessarily going to cost more money, but we want you to know if we didn't purchase them, we certainly have 2 coming off line, and it would be a savings, but we wouldn't be maintaining our fleet either.
Sure.
So that's the way that looks. But anybody who looks at the detail sheet would be able to see, oh, this year you had 450, next year you have...
The possibility exists that it
Yes.
could save us a lot of money. Right now, we wouldn't know that really until we've had a year to go through it, but the possibility exists that it could save us far more than it's going to cost us to educate them locally,
So
which is
Holly,
our hope.
right, Holly has in her mind, I think you said, Holly, at least 3 students you have slated that possibly might be returned. Is that correct?
I know I said at least 3, definitely 1.
Oh, okay.
Probably 2, and maybe more than that.
Okay.
It will depend on how things come together. Sometimes it's a fight to get those students back, but we will work on that.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I remember you saying, is sometimes, of course, the school that has them wants to keep them.
Of
And
course.
will say they can provide the services and they're doing well there. But the difference is if this is least restrictive environment and we can provide the services, we would try to bring them back.
Yeah, the next question, like, who makes the determination? The parent chooses, the district
No.
chooses?
Oh, it's a team determination. It is the IEP team, which includes administrator, regular ed teacher, special ed teacher, evaluators. If they're in out of district
And
placement, it
parents.
includes their team and the parent. Right. It's a group decision.
So parent doesn't get final say.
No.
Parent does not.
We will often have a parent who wants their child in a special placement, and we'll say the team does not deem that to be necessary. We can provide the services here. So it can work both ways. Sometimes they'll want them in a out-of-district placement because they feel like it's
They're comfortable, they're happy
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
It's been working. And sometimes they really want them back at their neighborhood school.
Sure.
They don't want them traveling away and not being part of the kids they grew up with. Yeah, it varies. Also, salary and benefit increases per contract raised up this K through 8 line. 9 to 12 is up 12%. We took out our technology costs. We added $30,000 in there for the high school level students that have those out of district services and are non-main care students. One of the reasons this line went up is we put a proportionate share of OT speech and psych costs in district. Before, all those salaries were in the K to 8 category, even though they were servicing kids at the high school level. So, am I correct on that, Stacy? We kind of adjusted them to show the percentages for each that they're kind of covering. So that made that line go up. And then the salary and benefit increases.
And if I can for a second, just explain why all these changes are taking place. There is a chart of accounts that the U.S. Department of Education sends down to the states, and then the states send to the schools that we have to follow. And the feds have decided they want to see more detail at the school level. So where a lot of things were coded district-wide in the past, now they want to be able to track those and compare them by all the schools in the country. And so that's why they're making us break it down to the school level.
Is this a new requirement this year, or is this something that you, being new back to the district, have identified as an area that we weren't doing before?
It actually, they started sending this information down to us 2 years ago.
Okay.
And so they've allowed us to slowly make the changes. But when I came in, yes, I had to make them all here. And the best time to make them is when you're creating the new budget. Because the budget's actually created in a separate module in the software. And it doesn't have to, you're not held to the constraints of what's already in there. So you can create all these numbers as they should be, or as the state now is making us do it, and you have a fresh start. So that's why you're hearing us say we can't really compare the numbers side by side,
Yeah.
because they're different.
So you're getting us back on track?
Yes.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and in the past, because we haven't had a business manager for, was it 3-year gap or 4-year? 3 or 4 year gap. We didn't have anyone going to business managers' meetings because we didn't have a business manager. And so somebody like a superintendent, Mike or myself, would get information from superintendent's meetings, but they certainly don't talk to us about things, about coding at your budget at a superintendent's meeting. So certainly in the last, if that happened just 2 years ago, it would have been in that time frame where that information would have been discussed and reviewed at business managers' meetings. So, one of the benefits of having this additional position for sure. All right.
Any other questions about the 9 to 12 changes? Okay. Administration is up 3%. We moved that district-wide behavior specialist and the benefits into this line. We had an increase in benefits for a new administrative assistant because mine left and the new one that came in has different benefits package. There was a $1,300 increase in dues and fees to cover those needs for both myself and the behavior specialist that's now in this line. We increased our seed money by $10,000, and that's the 1/3 portion we have to pay for out-of-district students with main care. Their main care gets billed for their speech, for their OT, for their PT, and then we get a bill for 1/3 of those costs. And we were about $10,000 off in an actual line, so we increased that. Administrator salary went up per contract, and we decreased our supply line because a lot of the supplies that we were purchasing in central office we have proportioned out to the programs and what their requirement share of the costs are. Overall, I guess this is an increase in the special education budget of 6%, which is equal to $208,972. The proposals, I only made 2 proposals this year, and luckily they're both being put forward, which I'm very pleased. You've already heard about this from Carrie Med, the special education teacher at PRHS, and the social worker, the half-time social worker up there. One of the big challenges, not only when you hear a class of 16 students, it really doesn't sound that bad, except like Carrie said, when they're all dysregulated and they're all having issues. You've got one teacher and a couple of ed techs trying to maintain this and teach the students. And I also have found that having that grade span from 9 to 12, all in one math class, one science class, one ELA class, they have different standards they're supposed to be working on, and you can't expect that the freshmen and the seniors are working on the same thing, so you're trying to meet everyone's needs. I think it'll be much more successful academically to break it down into a 9-10 group and an 11-12 group, and I think the smaller class size will certainly be beneficial to the students as well as the teachers. As Carrie said, it's very hard to find teachers that want to take on that class. And I think this will be more attractive to have a much smaller group that's a little more focused age-wise. And we would like it to be available if needed, if we have some 8th graders that are struggling, that if we needed to try to place them up into that program versus sending them out of district would certainly be a benefit. Because of the space issues at Whittier, it's our least amount of special education programs and services available there.
And I was going to say, adding the extra special ed teacher, Carrie and Sean would both say, well, especially Carrie would say, would also help with administrative time. She spends a lot of time, and as does Patrick Flynn, the assistant principal, yes. Because when the teachers are dealing with, this 3 students, there might be 2 others that are having issues that they don't catch soon enough that need then administrative intervention. And yes. So Carrie would say she spends a lot of her time supporting the students in this school to work program.
Absolutely.
So they're hoping, again, by more individualized attention and smaller class size, they will be able to redirect and diffuse situations before they are severe enough to need to be, either suspended or moved to the principal's office to be addressed. And then anything about the social worker? Carrie did most of that.
Yes, same piece. The students just need more support than the current social worker is able to give. And the fact that he is carrying the caseload of 58 to 60 kids in that building is amazing. When and if he ever leaves, I don't know how we'll find somebody else that will be able to come in and do what he's been doing. So this will be a good safety net, too, to have in place as well for that.
How do you find a half-time person?
Well, the good news is...
Yeah, the good news is we have a half-time position from last year that was never filled. So we'll be advertising for a full-time position and sharing them between Elm Street School and the high school.
That's why I brought
That's
it up.
exactly,
We couldn't-
yeah, that's exactly what we found, is we had a half-time social work position, and we can't fill it. So right now, we're patching it with some contracted services, and that's why we only need we're saying a half-time, but we'll be advertising for a full-time position that will be shared between those two schools.
And then you'll have a dedicated employee.
Exactly.
Rather than a contract or
Right.
part-time person.
Right.
That's why I brought it up for discussion, and
Yes.
to fill the position.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
So these half-time positions that you guys, whether they're filled, just drop down in fund balance at the end of the year? And they'll-
Yes, certainly. We didn't spend the money. Well, we've been contracting it out, so it's not all there.
Yes.
We've been contracting the work out, but if there's any savings because you don't fill an ed tech position, it stays in the budget and it rolls into your savings account, your fund balance, that you can then use in the future. And that's where that $325,000 of dedicated money comes in, is that you're using any money that's left over from this year's budget gets rolled into that savings account. So that's true.
And I think what Holly was mentioning about her administrative assistant having to replace them mid-year and the new one taking a different benefits package just goes to show you need to have that bit of extra in there, because all of a sudden she had a need for another $9,000.
Yes.
So you can't, plan the budget down to the exact dollar because things like that happen.
Okay, I think that's it for Holly. So thank you, Holly. And we have, did we say we're going to take a break, or are we going right through?